Before we get into Mel's Hole Part 2, I just want to do a quick thank you to everybody who subscribed on YouTube. We got Kevin, Lauren, Denon, Rocky, Mason, Mackenzie, Connor, Skyley, Joseph, Jens, and Hudson. Thank you.
Thanks for entering the crypt with us. Here we are, Bone Patrol, going in for Mel's Hole Part 2. As always, I'm Aaron. We got Tyler.
What's up?
Christopher.
Howdy.
And Max.
Hey.
And since this is Part 2, if you haven't listened to Part 1, make sure you check that out first so you can understand what's really going on here. So we're going to just jump straight in where we left off. If you remember, Mel wakes up in San Francisco, missing some molars. He's got some bruises. He's got a spot where someone's hooked up an IV, probably missing some blood. And he has no idea how he got there. It's been, 12 days?
12 days.
And he just wakes up in San Francisco, has no idea what's going on. He contacts Art Bell, who hooks him up with his dentist, hopefully get him some new teeth, and they start another interview on Coast to Coast AM. So, we're going to travel back to Ellensburg. Art Bell, he had this thing, he made belt buckles. It was a huge hobby of his, was to make belt buckles. And these were special kind of belt buckles I didn't know existed, where they had a little spot in the belt buckle. You could put a coin in it on display. Have you guys ever seen that before?
Not until I saw the picture.
Yeah, I was a little confused. They were describing the belt buckles that he put coins in them, and I had no idea what he was talking about. Yeah. But apparently it's like, for however many coins they can fit on the belt buckle, they'll put a little slot for, you just shove a coin in it and it's on display for everyone to look at your belt buckle.
I would do it with Pogs.
Pogs?
Yeah.
What are Pogs?
Pogs?
Yeah.
You serious? The old little poker chips that you slam.
You
got
slammers.
the slammer. You see? Never mind. Moving on.
Yeah, no.
I put my gold slammer in it.
Ooh, flexing on people.
I put bottle caps.
What's a bottle cap?
You ever heard of Pogs?
You ever heard of
I'll
Pogs?
just do like candy and mine just eat it throughout the day.
One of those candy necklaces.
It's like you got like Mentos.
Yeah, Mentos or something, or Junior Mints. Just eat them.
So Mel had a special belt buckle he wore that had 3 coins in it. Had a Winston Churchill coin, a Joseph Stalin coin, and a Franklin Roosevelt coin, which would be the dime. All right, whatever. I don't know where you get a Joseph Stalin coin, but Mel had him. He had a belt buckle. But Mel decided for some reason to examine that dime a little more closely. Because if you got a Franklin Roosevelt dime, why would you think it had the honor of being in a belt buckle with Joseph Stalin and Winston Churchill?
World War II.
Is that like...
They had a conference, I don't know when, but I remember in the interview, he talks about, he goes, when he's talking about the belt buckle, he goes, I have Winston Churchill, Joseph Stalin, and Franklin D. Roosevelt.
So it's his hero.
So
Franklin Roosevelt's his hero.
Let's say that.
All right, makes a little more sense then. So he looks at it, and he notices that this dime, this Roosevelt dime, was from the year 1943. No big deal until Art points out something very interesting. The Franklin Roosevelt dime was not in production until 1946. And then on top of that, each coin that is minted in the U.S. is printed with a single letter dictating where it was, which state or city.
It's the reserve, because there's one in Denver, there's one in San Francisco. It's where they mint them.
So it's the reserve where the coin is minted.
Yeah.
In this 1943 Roosevelt dime had letter B on it, which does not match any reserve in the United States.
Well, Art points out, he goes, it could be Boston, but Boston doesn't have a Federal Reserve minting, whatever they're called. So that's another point where it's like, where does this come from?
Yeah, where does this dime come from? Where did you get it?
Yeah.
Well, Art was like, well, I mean, naturally, I found it near the hole where all of my stuff comes from. Art was walking one day near the hole, and he sees...
You mean Mel?
Thank you. Mel was walking near the hole. Mel was walking near his hole, and he finds a little red Chinese envelope, those little Chinese New Year envelopes, just sitting next to the hole. So he opens it up, and inside are 10 1943 Roosevelt dimes. And he decided to put one in his belt buckle.
Well, he also put it in other belt buckles because listening to the interview, he's like, well, I'm an amateur jewelry maker. So he's made multiple of these belts with the Franklin Roosevelt 1943 dime. So there's multiple.
Who has them then?
That's the question. I want one.
Did you look on eBay?
eBay. Maybe.
I guarantee they're selling them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mel himself.
Mel himself. He sells himself.
Mystery.
You can look online and they have pictures of one of these dimes. Whether or not you believe this is real is a whole other story, but Mel claims to have 10 of these.
And
Craziness.
where they come from is the interesting part, and it introduces another interesting character that just makes the narrative even worse because nobody's reliable here. And this man is Richard C. Hoagland, and he refers to himself as a hyper-dimensional physics theorist. All right, that's what he calls himself.
No, where did he get his
hyper-dimensional physics theorist?
Mm-hmm.
Where did
that's what he says.
Where did he get his degree from?
Yeah, where's
Does he have credentials?
Well, the funny thing about him, and give the man a chance here, like, you get through this, and after we get through this, just give the man a chance. He has no education beyond a high school level, and no advanced scientific training at all.
Ah, okay. So he's one of those backdoor scientists.
Well, so he would get along.
That's a
Yeah.
cool term.
So he'd get along really, really well with Red Elk.
I'm
Yes.
starting to believe it's Red Elk in a mask.
That's his white name. Is
Red Elk was, once again, using his terminology, was a half-breed. Half
interdimension.
interdimensional half breed.
half hyper-dimensional physics theorist, and half shaman.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Basically.
So this backdoor scientist.
yeah, Richard C. Hoagland.
Hoagland. What was his theory here? What's his importance?
He thinks that these dimes came from a parallel universe from the whole. Like, the whole is connected to a parallel universe.
A universe where Roosevelt died in 1942.
We got
Maybe.
something in Boston making dimes. But yeah, so he is a very interesting character. Not only does he have no better than a high school level degree, he is notorious for taking like legit scientific discoveries and then just ruining them with his with his input. He's like, you know that thing you guys did on the moon? Aliens.
Aliens.
Yeah, so he believes that they came out of the whole from a parallel universe. So that whole is connected to like another universe.
Okay.
Kind of sick. I'm not
Interesting.
gonna lie. It's pretty tight.
Yeah, so doesn't help the story at all, but he has spoken out about it, and I browsed through his website a little bit. He's written several books, and he's really into doing exactly what I said, taking scientific discoveries and explaining it away with aliens and literally ruining people's careers because he's more popular than the science making the discovery. And so they're like, they make I can't talk. Groundbreaking evidence, and he's like, yeah, but alien civilizations, am I right? And they're just like,
He's like the BuzzFeed of science. He's just taking everything, just messing it up.
Exactly.
Like a huge audience.
BuzzFeed.
No, so yeah. So the theory with that is that they come from a parallel universe, and I believe Art actually thinks the same thing. He talks a little bit
He
about
mentions it, yeah.
He says his scientists. Well, I don't know who Art Bell's scientist. It's probably Richard, honestly.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
his scientists believe that they came from a parallel universe as well. So not only does this whole have magical powers, it connects to another dimension. So maybe the bingo that got thrown into the hole, another person threw a bingo through, and we got other dimensional bingo.
Like,
Bingo, the first interdimensional dog.
Beautiful.
Real quick, can you imagine going to like 15 years of school to earn multiple doctorate's degrees, and then to another 15 years on a scientific theory that will make all of the time worth it to have a high school senior debunk you, and people listen to him?
oof.
Ew.
I'm gonna take
Hoagland.
Hoagland. Just the last name itself, just wow.
It has power. It's power behind it. I believe it.
Yeah.
I don't even know the man, but anything he says, I believe it.
Might as well.
So obviously now, up until this point, Art has really never really tried to figure out where this hole is located other than just a rough explanation by Mel. But these 1943 Roosevelt dimes really, really got Art going. And he's like, okay, Mel, where is this hole located? We're going to look it up. And there's this thing called the Terra server, which is a bunch of satellite images you could view. kind of like Google Earth or maps that we have
Or
now.
Google Maps.
Yeah.
They didn't have that, sadly.
Sadly.
And so Mel's like, perfect. Let's get on the terror server. Let's look at where the hole is. And you know what they see? You know what they see? They pull up just a big, white, empty box where the hole should be.
Nothing.
Yo, I can explain, dog.
I can
Yo,
explain.
hold up, dude.
It snowed recently, so maybe.
There's a hole there, I swear.
I promise.
I promise, my dude.
So the location of the hole has been blacked out, whited out, taken out from the terror server so no one can view it. And Mel claims the TV camera crew went to Ellensburg and observed a large military presence around where the hole should be. Just backing up Mel's claim that the military took the hole from him.
Well, going back to episode 1, Red Elk, that was one of his things, was he would take people to the area, but there was big fences around because it was like a, I don't know if military base, but it was a military run, and if you got close enough, the military would they would pretty much make you leave. They would escort you out, and so apparently there is a legit military base there because like news reporters have gone up past the fence and then they get kicked out.
Which would explain why on the map it's whited out. They don't want you to be able to view military bases, any kind of secret information, things like that. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, as if this hole couldn't get any more mysterious in the military presence surrounding it, Mel drops some juicy information on us. So near Mel's property is a truck stop, which Mel loves to go to. He frequents it quite often. And he's talked with pretty much everybody there.
He loves truckers. I mean, in his interview, he's like, man, I love truckers. He's like, I look kind of like a Willie Nelson, and they always pick me up.
Is that really?
Yeah, no, he really says that in his
Wait.
interview in the beginning.
Is he like a lot lizard?
Yeah.
He,
No.
he might be. Yeah, wow.
Each their own, I guess.
He likes hanging out at the truck stops, playing pool.
Hey there, trucker.
Fishnets.
Mind.
So Mel has talked to everybody who comes in and out of this place. And he tells Art that several people have claimed that they've observed what they describe as a black anti-light beam shooting up into the sky from roughly where the hole should be located on Mel's property.
Sounds like a party.
Anti-light. So
What? How do you? That's hard to like imagine.
Just close your
Like
eyes.
close your eyes and what does that look like?
Everyone close your eyes.
Everyone close
if you're
your eyes
listening
now.
right now, close your eyes.
and imagine a black anti-light beam.
Imagine that for a second. Close your eyes. Just think.
Honestly, how does... Okay, does Hoagland give us any explanation on anti-light beams? I mean, it seems like right up his alley.
Yeah,
you should
backdoor
know.
scientist. You should know everything.
Nah, he's really adamant about faces on the moon and Mars, though.
Guys.
Yeah, it's close enough.
There's not much more on this black anti-light beam or what that even means, but another trucker told Mel that he delivered a large amount of fiber optic equipment to a group of Israelis to a warehouse in Ellensburg. And then a friend of this trucker delivered boxed equipment from Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory to the same warehouse. LL&L is located in San Francisco and works on projects for the U.S. military.
They tell him that, and Mel's just like, "Hey, I've been there. Have you ever been to the Golden Gate Bridge?"
Oh, whoa, dude, it's sick.
I once woke up from a drug bender and
So we're getting the seams threaded together here. We got high military presence at the hole. Things are being delivered from San Francisco to the hole where Mel woke up and saw the Golden Gate Bridge. Things are starting to come together here for Mel's story.
Why did they take him to San Francisco? If their stuff's coming from San Francisco, wouldn't you think they would take him somewhere else? Or are they just like, he's really interested in what's going on. Maybe he wants to see the production we got going on San Francisco.
Just like teasing him with it. Just
Yeah.
like, dude, you're crazy. We just drop off right in front of the thing. Like, no, dude, that's not us.
That's not us.
Mel was just trying to impress him. He's like, watch this. He starts ripping his molars out of his mouth.
hey man, whoa, hold on.
Take it
We
easy,
just wanted
bro.
to show you what we're doing here.
Knocks himself out for 12 days. It's like, okay, dude.
Pulls out those plants and grows on his property and just snorts one and knocks out for 12
Ate that
days.
whole thing, dude.
You're only supposed to take 10 milligrams of that.
So this whole thing, lots of people have seen things going in and out. What we're forgetting is that Coast to Coast is wildly popular, especially in the western United States. And a lot of people heard the mysterious case of Mel Waters and his bottomless hole. a group of Native Americans in Nevada heard the story, reached out to Mel by email, inviting him to their land to discuss art and plants.
Plants.
Yeah,
What
plants.
kind of plants?
Well, the plants he grows on his
Yeah, we don't
property.
know
And the
exactly
ones that
what
he
kind
was
of
able to
plants.
illegally smuggle into Australia.
I think that's the biggest mystery is what
How did he
plants are
smuggle
they?
it?
Yeah, how do they
Tiger
smuggle
lilies.
it? Oh.
Sunflowers.
Sunflowers.
Well, hold on
Roses.
to your pants because we're going to get a little more information right now on the
I hold
plants that Mel was growing.
Can I hold on to Max's pants?
You can hold on to
I'll slide
Tyler's pants. I'll hold on to Max's
over.
pants.
Okay. Who's?
I'll hold on to Chris's.
You can't hold on to anybody's pants.
I'm putting my pants up.
Last time you held on to someone's pants, you had to leave the room.
Yeah,
That's true.
He's banned from holding pants.
In September 2001, Mel took them up on their invitation and went to Nevada. Yep. So Mel notes that these people had done a lot of work with plants and natural medicines. They were very, very interested in Mel's work and questioned him on the plants he grew. Mel informed them that the best plants he grew were the ones near the hole that they heard about on the program, and he asked them if they were familiar with this specific variety of plant he was growing.
Tiger lilies.
And that's as specific as
Tiger
it gets.
lilies. Oh yes.
Just
The
Kentucky
tiger lily.
bluegrass,
Kentucky
crabgrass.
Wheat.
weed. Is it indicus or
Invincible. What strain is it?
what strain is this?
So at this point, they ask Mel to follow him, and they lead him to the real reason they invited him to Nevada. There was a second hole.
What?
Boom, boom.
It's two of them?
This hole was located in a small village populated by the Basque people. They were here raising sheep and thought the hole to be a spiritual location. Who are the Basque people?
Ooh, I have that answer actually. Thanks for asking, Aaron. So the Basque people come from a place called Basque Country in Spain. It's like kind of like a Basque country is what they call
Basque country.
it. It's like
Wait, isn't that a place in Disneyland?
Basque country.
That's where Splash Mountain is.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
it's from the same
Splash
spot.
Oh, because okay, yeah.
Yeah, they come from that.
All right.
And so they immigrated from Spain to like California and Idaho and Nevada back in the mid 19th century for the gold rush and to escape Spanish oppression. Interesting thing about them, the language they speak is isolated just to only them. They can't find any other ties to anyone else from like
So
the
they
language.
just made up a language. It's like
Yeah,
when
pretty
you're in
much.
elementary school and you just write
Just-
letters backwards
just-
and you're just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I made up a
Mhm.
language.
Like, look at this. But for them, like with like spiritual stuff, they're mainly all just Catholic. There's no like weird beliefs or anything. So that's why it's just kind of interesting. They're so like drawn to the whole. So yeah, that's the main thing with the Basque people.
So they're just Christians that
Mhm.
really love the movie holes.
Pretty much, yeah. And speak their own language.
And speak their own language that they made up in 4th grade.
Fair enough.
Did they immigrate anywhere else in the world, or they just basically come to the United States?
Yeah.
I mainly looked at just the U.S. and it was just California, Idaho, and Nevada. So
And have they been like accepted where they go?
no, so in Iceland.
Oh, so
up
they
until-
didn't go to Iceland, okay.
So well, they didn't go to Iceland. They were like hunting whales outside of Iceland, and it pissed them off. And so in the 1600s, they said you could kill them on site.
Oh
And
my
it
God.
Wait,
wasn't
you could kill whales or the Basque
the
people?
Basque people on site, and it wasn't like abolished until 2015.
So we're talking 2014. There were Basque
Yeah, you
people
could-
getting killed.
I mean,
Literally,
you
they were
could.
living in the Wild West.
Yeah,
Like,
pretty much.
much, yeah.
Iceland just
Kill
hated them.
on site.
So yeah.
All right. Well, so they take Mel to this little Basque village where they've got a second hole in the middle of the village, and much like the hole on Mel's property, this hole was 9 feet wide, but instead of having a stone retaining wall, it had a metal lining that receded down as far as the eye could see into the hole. And this hole produced a warmth from it. So you just get near and warm those hands.
Roast a marshmallow, just whatever you want.
It wasn't hot.
It was like
warm.
warm. Yeah.
Warm up a marshmallow next to your
It's like when you're the last one in the locker room after everyone went on a long run and you
Yeah.
open the door and it's like,
Let's hope the smell though.
Well, this is where it gets a little wild. This hole had the ability to cancel out any sound directly above the hole and inside the hole. So just like Mel's hole, where they never heard an echo come from it. No sounds were ever heard from the hole. This hole apparently extended that to anything directly above the hole as well.
So they just like leaned over the hole and were just like yelling. They're like, "Hey guys, look at this! So you can't hear in there."
You guys hear that? Oh, dude.
No, man.
Just like Mel's hole, animals were afraid of this hole, and a black anti-light beam had also been observed coming out of this hole.
So it's just like if it were a dark room in that cylinder, right? That's what an anti-light beam
I
is.
imagine
And
it's
why
like a
did-
shadow.
Why would they? Yeah, exactly.
Shadow,
So like,
yeah,
if
that'd
you-
be pretty good.
if the lights are off, because
Yeah.
they say black anti-light, but I feel like anti-light can't have a color. I don't know.
It's just-
I'm just trying to imagine. It's just a shadow shooting out of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
Instead of
yeah.
having
Yeah.
like a big beacon of light, it's a big beacon of shadow.
Just like, yeah, that makes more
Okay.
sense.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
So holding true to the Mel Waters we know and love, he sees this new hole, and the first thing he wants to do is experiment.
Well,
Sounds like
last time they experimented, they threw a dog in there.
Okay, yeah, let's step it back here. Mel loves animals. He loves wombats, specifically.
Especially wombats.
Mel's not really, he's not in it to hurt any animals, so Mel's like, the next best thing to animals is ice. So now it's time to experiment. Mel and the villagers got a bucket of store-bought ice and lowered it 1,500 feet into the hole. And because they're good scientists, they kept another bucket of ice outside of the hole as a control unit.
She's
They-
gonna melt.
Well, that's what they did. That's
Well,
why it was out
that's
of
what
the
they're
hole.
seeing.
Make sure it's not special ice, you know?
They
Yeah.
waited until the ice on the surface had melted halfway, and then they hoisted the ice that was in the pit back up. All right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I don't know what led them to this experiment at all.
Yeah, at what point are you just like, ice?
I know, like,
Put ice in hole.
it's
ice
warm,
will
let's just do
melt.
ice.
Maybe they're trying to see how hot it is actually inside the hole to see if it like melted faster.
Maybe.
I also feel like they weren't allowed in the store to buy the ice. They had to like sneak in.
Like, Mel had to go. Yo, Mel, can you go buy us some ice and groceries? We're banned from the store.
Yeah, that's all they really wanted was groceries.
Groceries. Don't care about the hole at all.
Hey, you want some frozen pizza?
So they lowered one frozen pizza, one tortilla
Tortilla
frozen
pizza. Left one on the outside.
That's one cooked faster.
So here is the result. The ice that was lowered into the hole did not melt. It was now lukewarm, and even after taking it out of the bucket, it did not melt in Mel's hands.
That's crazy.
I wonder if they were like talking about plants beforehand or after.
Yeah.
I wonder where the plants came in.
Well,
That was the first thing they did when they got there. Is it was all talk about plants.
Groceries, plants,
gotta get
ice.
the snacks first.
Step back. It was
Plants,
The plants.
groceries.
The plants made them want the snacks.
Oh, yeah, they couldn't go.
Yes. And that's why they weren't allowed inside the grocery store. All right. So at this point, the villagers and Mel set out to melt the ice. They had a vendetta against this ice. It needed to melt.
Hey, yo, bro, Mel, we gotta melt this ice.
Yo, dog.
So naturally, and this does make sense, they tried to cook it over a fire pit. Like, well, fire will melt the ice.
Melts ice usually, yeah.
I think Richard would agree with them.
Yeah.
The fire will melt ice.
as a backdoor scientist, 100% of the time, ice will be melted by.
Well, I need to take
Actually-
that back because
Oh, no.
not 100% of the time, because this time the ice caught on fire. And we're not talking like a large flame, we're talking just a little like, imagine like you light a candle, I'm guessing, a little flicker, just a little flame. But it caught on fire and it was producing heat, and that ice continued to burn for months. And okay, I don't know how long Mel was in Nevada, but
As long as they had plants.
Yeah,
Long
those
trip.
plants.
this ice continued to burn for months, and as far as Mel knows, it is still burning today.
Amazing.
Someone even took this ice home, put it in their stove, and heated their entire cabin for the winter.
He just waited till Mel was like conked out, and he was like, "Hey Mel, I'm gonna take some ice. Thanks, see you, bud."
Well, I mean, magic ice that can warm an entire house for the winter. So, of course, they tried to recreate this ice experiment, and it worked about 1/3 of the time. But every single time, they would achieve various different levels of anything you can imagine. Heat, flame, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Maybe how long it could
Different
burn for.
states. Yeah.
It all varied depending on how many plants they
How many
talked about
plants.
beforehand.
Yeah.
And now these Basque people being renowned scientists, one of the Basques stepped up and he volunteered to be lowered into the hole himself.
Why do people keep wanting to go into the hole?
Bring me down the hole, Bobby. Bring me down the hole.
But don't worry, they talked him out of it. They talked him out like, that is not safe. It's not safe. We're going to settle on something a little more humane and lower a sheep into the hole. And everyone's like, yeah, okay, a sheep, that's cool.
I
Yeah,
like
throw a
sheep.
sheep into this hole.
Mel loves animals.
Dude, he loves them.
Well, it wasn't a wombat, so he was cool with
Yeah,
it.
he didn't care.
Yeah. This sheep that they got gave them hell. It fought, it screamed, it kicked, because just like every other animal, it did not want to get near this hole.
I don't want to be thrown in a hole
Yeah,
either.
I can't
I don't
blame
think
him.
anyone
Yeah.
does.
So after a strong fight, the Basques eventually won by hitting the sheep between the eyes,
You need the cartoon bonk noises.
Boom, boom, doing.
and it
Sing
stunned it long enough they could fit it into a crate and begin hoisting it over the hole.
Poor sheep, dude. What the heck?
Was it even a sheep or was it like one of their friends? And they're just way too high to know
Yeah,
the difference.
yeah.
It's just Greg, and Greg's like, guys, stop.
Greg, stop.
I bonked him between the eyes. So just as they began lowering the crate into the hole, the sheep woke up and it went ballistic. It let out a blood-curdling scream, but as soon as the crate was positioned above the hole, everything went silent.
They could justify it that way. It's like, we can't hear him screaming, we're good.
Yeah, he sounds fine.
Male, lower the rope.
He stopped screaming, he's fine.
The lamb was still fighting inside the crate, but no sounds were being produced, at least that they could hear. So then they slowly lowered the sheep into the hole, and about halfway down, the sheep stopped struggling. They lowered the crate 1,500 feet, the same as the ice, and at this point, they could feel the metal rim that went around the inside of this hole just started vibrating. They left the sheep in the hole for half an hour, and then raised the crate out of the hole.
Half an hour? Did they go talk about more plants?
Maybe.
I mean, are they trying to see if the sheep will melt? I'm
Catch on fire
Catch
like
on
the ice.
fire.
I'm gonna put the sheep in my stove and it's gonna keep my house warm for the entire winter.
Maybe they're gonna make like the warmest blankets with its wool.
Ooh, like a heated blanket.
yeah.
But
instead of
you don't need to
electric
plug it in.
blankets.
It's like wireless with no batteries or anything
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
They're onto something.
That's kind of sick.
All right, well, they brought the crate out of the hole, opened the crate, and discovered the sheep was dead.
Oh man.
There was nothing suspicious on the outside, so the Basques suggested dissecting the sheep. If it wasn't on the outside, it was definitely on the inside.
I feel like the same guy who wanted to get in the hole is the same guy that's like, let's cut it open.
Well, they all agreed because they're, once again, fantastic scientists. They're not afraid to get their hands a little dirty.
I think they've read a few of Richard's books.
So after cutting into the sheep, they discovered that the sheep appeared to be cooked on the inside, and there was a tumor growing inside the sheep surrounded by a strange gel.
Also, during the interview, Mel says that the tumor was pulsating.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh.
I don't wanna think
Imagine
about
that.
Tyler.
Doo-doo.
No, I said I don't want to.
What in the world could cook something from the inside out?
George Foreman grill.
Yeah,
I-
George Foreman grill.
They made it eat it before it went down. This. Well, so I did a little bit of research just looking into other holes, and this actually led me to a little bit of evidence to what could have caused something like that. Before we get straight into that, I want to talk about another hole where they were doing some research. It's called the Hojska or Hauska, I don't know how to pronounce it, castle in the Czech Republic. So pretty much it was like a big pit in the ground in the 13th century. I mean, I'm sure it's still there, but in the 13th century, they believed it was a pit to the underworld, like a gate into hell. And they said that it would put out like extreme heat and like people would go in and like get blistered and like pretty much really odd things, right? And so they built a castle over it, sealing it off so that way demons couldn't get out and terrorize the town folk. Because they claimed that demons were getting out and terrorizing the
You
town
can't blame
folk.
him back
Did
in
it
that day.
heat the castle?
I don't think it was
That was the
producing-
real reason.
Yeah.
I don't think it was producing enough heat until
To
you
heat
got in like down
Okay.
into it really. But I don't know that for sure. And so I was reading about it, and apparently there is a lot of like magma and volcanic activity that's producing a lot of CO2, and that's venting out of these cracks and pits in the ground, and it led me to do some research on what they call CO2 lakes, where it's pretty much CO2 gets trapped underneath water, and then it creates what they call, it's like this acid, it's carbon acid is what they call it, and it's...
Is it carbonic acid?
It's probably the same thing.
Okay.
They just called it carbon acid in the article. Pretty much it gets stuck underneath, and then it becomes an acid that's a gas. It's like the only gas acid that you will breathe in, and it pretty much kills you that way. And pretty much what happens is it will heat up your insides, push all the oxygen out, and you'll suffocate and die. And there was an incident in the lake called Lake Nyos where it had that acid shoot out, and it killed like a whole village, like 1,000 people. Well, actually, I think it was almost 2,000 people and like 4,000 livestock or something like that. They all suffocated, but people who survived said that like their insides were burning, and so they were looking into the like autopsies and stuff. And some people were burned on the outside and inside, and some people were just outside. Some people were just inside. So CO2 or carbon acid is something that can cook you from the inside technically.
Yeah. And to make it a little better, they found out what causes it builds up into like a bubble. The gas does, the CO2. And sometimes it builds up too much pressure and the bubble pops. And that's when they'll get poisoned. So in that specific lake he's talking about, they've built a ventilation system now. So they can't do it anymore. But
usually
it just takes 2,000 people and their livestock dying.
It usually will vent properly, but what caused that mass poppage of bubble
Mass poppage.
A landslide nearby caused it to all come out, and it pretty much, since carbon's heavier than oxygen, when it's shot out into the air, it comes back down, pushes all the oxygen out, and you just can't breathe and suffocate and die.
Cool.
That is an awful way to die,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Well, you wouldn't see it coming. It would probably smell
your
really
insides would
bad.
just burn.
You start to
and-
hurt.
Well, if you were asleep though, you just wake up so confused and feel like you're on fire, and then you're dead.
Wake up in heaven, honestly.
Yeah.
So pretty much if there is CO2 coming out of this pit and water down in there, because far enough down, there's sure to be water in there, this could be causing a miniature CO2 lake, making carbon acid, and they just pretty much tortured a sheep. So...
Well, they cut it open. It's cooked on the inside. They see the tumor, and the tumor was moving as if there was something inside of it trying to get out.
Hey, Mel, you see that?
He's moving.
So they removed it, cut open the tumor, and inside was an 18-inch long fleshy creature.
Oh.
Why did they measure it?
Yeah, where they're like, here, let me grab my...
Well, yeah, they're scientists. These guys, they take everything seriously. That's the first thing. They measured it. They weighed it. They gave it a name.
What's his name?
What's his name? Yeah, what's his name?
18-inch long fleshy creature.
For short, just fleshy.
So this is how Mel describes it to us. It looked like a cross between a fetus and a seal. I don't know what kind of fetus. There was a human fetus, a seal fetus. But he says a fetus and a seal, but it had human eyes.
So they just lowered a pregnant sheep into this pit and murdered them both.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. That sounds
Maybe.
Well, it was alive and it had an umbilical cord connected to the tumor.
It was pregnant.
Ooh. Okay.
They removed the creature from the cord, and it just sat there observing the entire
After 30 minutes of silence, y'all play Fortnite?
Hey, Mel, I dare you to poke that seal.
Well, Mel describes the entire situation as feeling as if he was in the presence of a miracle.
He was so high.
Yeah. What did he take exactly?
Now, the Basques, sticking to their science, one of them steps up and suggests they kill it.
It was Bobby
Yeah,
again.
it was the same guy.
Bobby.
Just kill it. Well, that's fine.
Put the sheep in, let me jump in, kill the fetus.
Kill the fetus.
I jump back in.
I jump back in. Then I become baby seal. And, yeah.
So, guys, I know we just discovered this miracle, this creature that has existed nowhere else, but hear me out, let's kill it.
Hey, Mel, do you think we can kill it?
Dang it, Bobby. Don't kill things.
The seal crawled to the edge of the table, looked at Mel, and Mel felt connected to it. So he picked up the creature off the table, sets it on the ground, and Mel describes the ooze that it left on his hands.
Did he like wipe on his pants?
He smells it, and he says it smelt like ozone.
Oh, yeah, I know
Okay,
exactly what
yeah.
that smells like.
Kind of like an apple juicy smell.
Apple juice.
Yeah. So while on the ground, the seal slowly studied each person in the group individually.
It has to be.
Hey Mel, is that thing looking at me? Yes, Bobby.
And this took like a couple of hours.
They stood there staring back for 2 hours.
They're all just like standing around tripping,
so
looking
high.
at just like a chunk of meat they just ripped out of the sheep.
That's like rotten.
And like some poor child walked in who's not tripping out and just like, what? And just turned around.
Well, this thing, they just ripped this child out of its mother, and it's looking at them for help because it's dying, and it's like, huh? Is that thing looking at me? Are those human eyes?
help you
Oh
with
my
something?
How long is it?
Idiot.
Someone get a ruler.
You like pizza?
You like? I got some frozen pizza for you.
We should probably just kill it.
You need groceries?
Do you like a Bud Light?
You like a Bud Light?
Here, bud.
We can't open it for him. That's why he's not taking it.
So Mel is really connected to this creature. Just, he's really feeling it. And he describes this creature as having the most compassionate look he's ever witnessed.
And I love that baby seal to the day I die.
The creature slowly crawled to the hole. Mel felt compelled to pick it up, put it at the edge of the hole.
Mel just like, he's like, guys, I'm gonna grab it. No, Mel, no. He's like, I'm gonna grab it. I got it.
Well, Mel describes it as, these weren't just like he wanted to do it, he felt compelled to do it.
Guys, I
Something
have to
inside-
grab
I
this.
need to pick this thing up, guys.
Bobby's like, no, Mel, don't do
No,
it.
no,
I have to grab this.
Mel puts it on the edge of the hole, it looks at the group, gives them a small nod, and it jumps back into the hole.
He's a real G.
Yeah.
Later, fellas. He just falls back in the
Nice
hole.
knowing you.
He was slippery and covered in gel. He puts him next, and it's like, whoop, and it just slips right in.
Oh no.
So it falls back into the hole from whence it came, never to be seen again.
This is a straight Pennywise moment right now. He just like looks at him and nods. And says fear, and then falls back into the hole.
That thing just say fear.
Should have killed it.
Should have
Killed
killed
you
it.
guys.
So in late August, before the Nevada trip, Mel was diagnosed with terminal esophageal cancer. He was given 6 months. Now, if you remember, Mel promised that if he was ever diagnosed with a terminal illness, he would jump in the hole. He didn't do that. He fled to Nevada instead.
Oh, man.
But on his return home from visiting Nevada, the cancer had completely vanished. Mel accredits the creature to healing him.
Miracle worker seal. I believe.
Dr. Fleshy
Dr.
MD
It's a new show on HBO.
stares at you for 2 hours.
I've been healed by this magical baby seal.
Mel, can you think I can hold the seal a little bit?
Okay.
No, I have to hold the seal.
I want my cataracts to be healed.
Mel, I don't feel so good. Please, Mel. Just 1 second.
So we cut back to Nevada. After the experience with the creature, the Basque elder reaches out, puts an object in Mel's hand, closes Mel's hand over it, and told him to hide it away. So Mel puts it in his pocket without looking at it. Later, Mel decided to see what the elder had given him. It was a little red envelope containing a single 1943 Roosevelt dime.
Wait, sorry, did he ever lose the dimes, or did he always have the dimes?
He put them in belt buckles.
Put him in belt buckles
And sold them.
Did he have a belt buckle with the
He
dime?
did, yes.
Yeah.
So pretty much, they mugged him.
They
took
mugged him,
his
took
dime.
his dime to give it back.
Where did he get the red envelope? How'd they know about that?
It was Chinese New Year around that time.
Tyler with the facts, baby.
Months ago, they yoinked his diamond and just re-gifted
I
to
know,
him.
they're like, man, I kind of feel bad stealing it now. We had a really good time with
Really
this guy.
fun. It's kinda
I
tight.
liked his plants though.
And Mel's like, yo, it's so crazy. I lost this dime a few months ago.
Dude, pit.
Oh, it's
Well,
like,
question
thanks,
is, I mean, these holes share a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Do you think they're connected? Like, do you think they're they connect into one big underground tunnel system?
That was
Would
That
have to
was
be
my
like a
thought
U shape.
because Art mentions a hollow theory or a hollow Earth theory, and Mel's like, "Well, that could be it."
Or it's just the same hole and the government moved it, like I said.
Yeah.
They lost it again.
That's
dropped
what I
it
like.
in
They dropped
Nevada.
in Nevada.
And the Basque are like,
Just watch this whole.
Well, that would make sense why it'd be a spiritual moment.
Yeah.
So in December of 2002, Mel Waters once again appears on Coast to Coast AM for a little update from the Nevada trip.
Hey, Art, it's me again.
He lets Art know that helicopters had been flying over the village with the Basque hole, but because of the metal ring inside of the hole would appear invisible from a far enough away distance.
What year is this?
2002.
yeah.
They're just execution ordering. Bro, it's
Oh,
not
dude.
2015 yet.
Uh-oh.
So they heard the interview. People are flying helicopters, but they can't see it because the hole's invisible.
Because of the metal, because that's the best camouflage.
Yeah.
Yeah, metal.
Strangely enough, the 1943 dime also is invisible if attempted to view from 15 or more feet away.
So he could not take a picture of it.
I can't remember. That's
Yeah,
so,
because
weird.
Art's like, hey, like, could you take a picture of this and like send it through email? And he goes, yeah, sure. And then so like the last time, Art asked him, did you take that picture? And he's like, the weirdest thing, I cannot take a picture because it disappears.
Yeah, it doesn't show up on film. It won't show up if it's scanned.
Listen, Art, I really wanted to take that picture, but it disappears.
That's my new excuse for everything in my life. Like Miss Homework assignment, like, yo,
It
it
disappears.
just disappeared. I uploaded it to Canvas, dude, and it disappeared. I don't know what to tell you, dude.
So that's the last we hear about the dimes and the Basque hole. Mel, though, gives the listener a little update on the burning ice. The Basque man who had been using it to heat his house and noticed that he was always thirsty, the air was always dry, and his skin was beginning to dry out pretty severely. He would attempt to humidify the air by boiling water in his cabin, but the steam that the boiling water produced was just sucked up by the ice. It just absorbed it.
Yeah.
One day, the man came home to find that his stove, where he was keeping the ice, had crashed through the floor and had sunk about a foot into the ground below. Now that this cabin was completely exposed to the elements, he attempted to patch up the damage and continued to use the stove while it was in the ground to heat his cabin.
Oh man, my stove fell on the ground.
Aw.
I need to cook my pizza.
I got Totinos.
I got some.
A couple weeks later, the man once again returns to his home to find that his entire cabin has been burnt to nothing more than a pile of dust.
I made my Totinos.
I left the oven on cooking my pizza.
Oh, man.
Hey, Bobby, you got pizza?
So he goes, he stays with his brother, he has nowhere to live, so he's living with his brother. A month later, he decides to return to where his cabin used to be to check it out, and he discovered that the stove was now 5 feet in the ground. And it was creating a glassy surface, like the further it would sink, like the farther it sunk into the ground, it would just create this glassy surface around it.
Hey, Terry. Hey, Terry, where'd my oven go?
The man contacts Mel, tells him the whole story, so Mel decides to contact one of his old contacts from Australia, the mysterious official.
That's all his name is?
Official.
The mysterious official.
He's the dude that shows up in like those History Channel shows where they don't want their face shown. And he's like, hello, it is me. But like,
I'm the official.
Yeah,
the
well,
odd part is he actually is just a black silhouette with a voice like that.
So Mel tells him the whole story, and the official is greatly disturbed and worried. The official comes in contact with the cabin owner and goes to view the site himself.
Yeah, I cooked my pizza and it fell right in.
He's Totinos.
Take a look.
Now, the owner wasn't allowed to be there, but he wanted to see what's going on. So he hides in the hills, and he's watching. He's watching as the mysterious officials examining the
He
area.
really doesn't want to eat his pizza.
Yeah.
Bro.
That's my 5th Totino's pizza.
I need that.
A team arrives with a lot of heavy-duty technical equipment, but no matter how hard they tried, they could not lift the stove out of the hole. Even using multiple cranes, they couldn't get out of the hole.
Multiple
Like
cranes.
2 or 3?
Or like
10.
10.
Eventually, what they did is they took some chains, strapped it to the stove, covered the chains in water,
Don't know what that does.
4?
I have no idea why.
Grab a couple plumb bobs.
And then they hooked those to the cranes, and they were able to lift the stove out of the hole. And using the biggest truck the Basque man had ever seen in his life, quote,
Cybertruck.
they hauled it off.
Huh. So they really wanted that Totino's pizza.
You guys mind leaving the pizza behind you down the stove? Hey, wait.
So Mel informs Art that he feels like he's being followed. And that even though he's a hard man to find, whenever somebody wants to talk about the hole, they always seem to find him.
They're back for the teeth, the rest of his teeth.
Yeah.
So Mel decides it's not safe, so he doesn't ever go back to visit the hole. The Basques once again reach out to Mel and inform him that the seal creature had returned out of the hole multiple times.
Fleshy. He's back.
Y'all got more pizza?
Well, they figured out a way to talk to him. They figured out a way to communicate with the fleshy 18-inch creature.
I mean, it makes sense. They have their like own language. Like,
Say
completely.
pizza.
Say
Totino's.
It would speak through one of the boom boxes they own.
It's Bumblebee.
And also, it would be like radio frequencies, and they would try to record it, and it would be beeps and like
Pulsating
chimes.
noises.
Yeah. Oh, I understand. He's telling he wants more Totino's.
Go to the grocery store quick.
Moment to go.
So Mel had figured out what this thing was. He was no longer confused. He figured out it was a rock flyer.
What's a rock flyer?
What?
Yeah.
It's a creature in Native American lore that lives beneath the earth and can travel between multiple Earths.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So connecting the interdimensional parallel universe theory, maybe?
Yeah.
It was a rock flyer.
Okay.
Episode 2, done. Solved.
Rock flyer.
Rock flyer.
Pack it up, boys.
The creature, speaking to the Basques, warned them about the burning ice. It told them that it can, and it will destroy the Earth if they don't properly use it.
Say Totino's. Your Earth will be destroyed. Put the ice back in the pit.
Humans.
Get him a slice.
He wants pepperoni, he said.
He wants a bun as well.
Open it for him. He ain't got hands.
Make it 2 buds. He's stressing.
The creature informs them that they're intelligent beings watching Earth, and they know that the humans are going to wipe themselves out to extinction through nuclear war, and once we do so, they're going to come inhabit our empty planet.
No, I can't remember. Are these beings underneath the Earth, or
Nope.
is that okay?
No, these
that's
are outside the
something
Earth. They're just observing us, and once we're gone, they're going to come to Earth to use the
Or
ice.
just a massive reality TV show. They're just like, watch as they kill themselves with the ice.
The creature then informs them that whenever burning ice appears in the universe, it is almost always improperly used.
Oh man.
How do you use it the right way?
Obviously not the good
Not
pizza.
to put it in your stove.
Dang.
The interview ends. Mel Waters is never heard from again.
Wow.
So, do we think Mel's dead, or just
People have tried to find him and contact him, and no one's been able to find him. We talked about in the first episode. There's no records of him ever existing.
That's true. Yeah.
It's an alias.
Alias.
For his own,
Yeah.
for his own safety.
Makes sense.
All, yeah, like especially if he's getting large sums of money from the government, like I'm sure he's not allowed to just be like, "My name's Craig Carls. I got a lot of money from the
I
government."
live here at 123 4th Street.
And that's Mel's hole.
Huh.
Yeah, that's all we know about it. That's all the information Mel gave us on it. It hasn't been found again. I don't know. Do you have any, after reviewing this, after literal weeks of research, has your theory changed, Max?
Like the actual one or the
Your actual theory.
I can't remember exactly what I said the first time, but they're all just
What's your actual theory then?
that he's just on drugs. It was all made up and fake, and he just took stories from his actual life of his benders and then tied him into Mel's hole. And I feel like he actually met with like the Basques. I don't know why. I feel like that's like legit. Such a specific group of people just to mention and be like, oh yeah, there's this group of people. There's only like 6,000 in Nevada, so it's
Not
like
very much.
I mean, he's a good storyteller.
yeah, he's
that's
a good
for
for
sure.
sure. So I think that he just took stories from his actual life and then just
Embellished on?
put like a fictional twist on him and just
All right. Christopher.
So, if I think if I think that they believe this is real, like if for some reason they're 100% convinced this is real, they're not just embellishing stories. I agree with Max. They're 100% studying some plants, getting real freaky with it. But I was also doing some research that, like I was talking about with CO2, enough of that in your system can cause you to hallucinate. Nitrous oxide, also known as laughing gas, can cause you to hallucinate, and it is naturally produced in some areas. So, like bacteria will produce it. So, if in like agricultural lands mainly, and like large bodies of water, and then methane can also cause hallucinations. What's oddly enough, decomposing bodies put that out. So if they're chucking animals in, they're just getting high off their fumes, bro. So I think that it's just like not necessarily a hole as they're describing, like a mine shaft or something, and they're just sitting around it, tripping out, just putting animals in there, eating pizza,
totally fried,
cracking some
totally
cold
fried.
ones.
Yeah.
All right. Tyler.
See, I think along the same lines with Max and Chris, but also an interesting thing is in the interview he mentions like his wife leaving him. So I'm thinking like Mel's kind of getting this depressed state, and so he listens to Coast, and he goes, you know, all this stuff that's been happening to me. If I can like somehow make this into like a supernatural story, I can call Art and like be able to talk to him, my hero, and yeah, I think he just like
Hit rock bottom.
started doing these plant stuff, went to the Basque people, they started doing it with him, and he was just on a bad trip.
No, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah,
it was a wacky trip. I don't want to say like they didn't take his land. Like I believe that stuff like that happened.
Maybe he lost it,
but his way of coping was a lot of shrooms.
Yeah. A crap ton.
And visiting native tribes in Nevada.
And selling belt buckles.
My theory is going to differ a little bit. I believe that Mel's exotic plants he was growing definitely had an effect on how he viewed the world. So my theory goes back to the military taking the whole. We're going back to the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, LL&L.
Yeah.
So I looked into them. They have many programs they work on, but their number one listed program is global security. So I looked into it, and some of the main projects they're working on under global security are high throughput pathogen detection, enhanced radiation detection training, and going beneath the grid with underground energy storage.
Huh.
That's a weird coincidence.
Because remember, they were transporting equipment to the hole.
Military base, right?
Mm-hmm. So I looked into that. I mean, I have a picture here. I can post the picture in the description if you guys the listeners want to look at it. But it's showing basically how they plan on harvesting energy from beneath the earth. And what they do is they have one line of compressors that they drill into the ground to harvest CO2. And then another one that goes even deeper to get hot brine, which is just like hot salt water. And that's how they make the energy that way. They use it to power like turbines and stuff. But that would explain if they believe there was CO2 to be harvested out of this hole. It could explain the hallucinations, the animals cooking on the inside. Yeah. But it also explain why the government wanted it. LL&L specifically has a lot of contracts with the U.S. military. So it explained the U.S. military being on site. It would explain why Mel was compensated such a large sum of money, because they'll do that. If the government, you have natural oil or something on your natural gas or oil on your land, they will, they'll pay you to drill it and use your land. So that would explain why he was receiving such a large sum of money, explain why he's using alias, because once again, you make that much money, you live in a small rural community, that's a lot of people all of a sudden, well, Mel's making $3 million a year,
Maybe I have some of this special stuff.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, if it's natural gas, that produces a lot of CO2, and if they're getting hot brine in the water, then it's going to be making that carbon acid.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
And Christopher doesn't like this theory. My theory on the hallucinogen is carbogen. It's a mix between oxygen and CO2.
Carbogen.
Christopher doesn't like it because it's man-made, But on this little picture from LLNL, where they're getting the CO2 from, it listed as air or CO2. I think that leaves the possibility it could have both.
The only reason I don't like it is it's because it's not that it just mixes and creates it. It's a very specific amount of oxygen and carbon.
Yeah.
So it would have to like...
It's like
be
98
almost-
to 2, I think.
Yeah, it has to be like very
Just right.
specific.
What happens
yeah.
if they don't mix it right?
So,
What
like,
do they get?
I'm
Probably
sure it
other
does
stuff.
nothing.
Nah.
I mean, carbon and oxygen are mixing all the time from us breathing.
But why I like this one is carbogen was used as psychotherapy. It was a gas they would use. So it caused extreme hallucinations.
Huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe.
So in theory, it's possible that it
Possible,
could
yeah.
mix. In theory,
Is it probable though?
that's
Yeah,
that's
that's the
the
question.
theory.
Okay.
Interesting. Well,
Well, any last remarks before we close this one down? Lock it in the crypt. Anything on Mel's hole you want to say?
I would say if you're really interested about learning more, go on YouTube. There's a lot of great videos. Red Elk has a couple of videos which are very entertaining because he's a very entertaining guy.
Yeah, that right out, real funny guy.
Yeah, real funny
there
guy.
we go.
That halfling.
Hey, real. What? It's not his terminology. Half breed. What is
That
this?
hobbit.
Like the Lord of the Rings. Meet the halfling. Anyway.
All right. Well, I think on that note, we're good. We're going to close up Mel's hole, lock it in the crypt. Thanks for listening. Have a good night, kiss.
It's your boy Mustache Max. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to check us out on social media: Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. That's it.
I like it. It's good.